have to really escalate the noise we make so that we'll be heard.
Welcome to Gay USA. I'm Andy Humm.
And I'm Rob Shooter.
Rob, welcome to Gay USA.
Thank you. I feel like I'm becoming a regular.
You are.
And it's a good feeling.
Take it over. we do need reinforcements here. In the news this week, well, the president started out the week by meeting with the fascist leader of Brazil, who took the occasion to speak out against LGBT people and women.
And Pence met with the gay Irish Prime Minister, who talked about being judged on political actions and not on sexual orientation.
Are you sitting down? The Supreme Court let stand a pro-gay decision against a bed and breakfast in Hawaii.
They did. I'm sitting down. So just two Democratic members of Congress won't support the federal LGBT rights bill.
Yeah, it's too bad. Now, we have elections coming up in Chicago and Wisconsin on April 2nd. If you live in those places, mark your calendars, because they're very important to the LGBT community.
Very important. We're also sadly mourning the loss of two pioneers, Birch Bayh and filmmaker Barbara Hammer.
Yes, indeed. And Germany, which already gave reparations to gay men who were and bisexual men who were convicted under paragraph 175, the anti-gay law, are now providing more reparations for people who were just investigated for it.
All right.
But you know, look, let's sober up, because this has been a horrible week after what happened in New Zealand. You know, when I first saw that figure, 49 people slaughtered, it made me think of the Pulse massacre. 49 people slaughtered and many more injured, and it ended up being 50 people killed in New Zealand. And then, you know, but what did we have from the president this week? No, that day, he vetoes the bill and declares, you know, we have to stop the invasion, which is what the murderer, the terrorist, the white supremacist terrorist was, you know, shouting as on his website as he was slaughtering all these people. We're being invaded. We have to kill these people. And this was an Australian, not a New Zealander.
Right.
And then Trump was asked about white nationalism, and he said it's a small group, which of course it's not. It is a rising phenomenon. Right. And the shooter also praised Trump as a symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose.
I think that was in his manifesto that he put out. He also tagged several members of the media. He clearly wanted attention. He wanted this to be out there. Kellyanne Conway is defending the president, saying he was only mentioned once.
Didn't you read the whole thing, she said?
She said
he was only mentioned once.
Really troublesome language, though. It is exactly the same language that the terrorist used, which is terribly, terribly troubling, after saying how upset he was by this without using the word Muslims or terrorist. The president did go on to use exactly the same language, including them invaders.
Well, the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, immediately moved to ban assault weapons, comfort the people. We have a picture of her there. Oh, she's just terrific.
And notice, too, how she covered her head in respect. Yes. I think also, too, they're now going to try very hard to change the gun laws in that country.
She's covering all the funeral costs for the families, for the victims and things like that. And then there was the racist Australian senator, Fraser Anning. I never heard of him, but he blamed the slaughter of all these innocent Muslims on Muslims. There he is, about to get egged by a kid named, what's his name?
Here he is. Let me find his name.
Will Connolly, 17 years old. Talk about...
He's gone on to be called Egg Boy. So if you see this young gentleman, it's become a little bit of a global phenomenon. So after he egged this right-wing politician, he then set up, or friends of his set up, a GoFundMe page to try and raise some money to cover, get this, his legal costs and more eggs. Well, apparently he well exceeded that. I think it's up to about $35,000. He has now decided that what he doesn't need to cover legal costs or eggs, he's now going to donate to families of the victims. This young kid has taken on a global sort of presence. People are very excited to see him. He probably has a very bright future. He's articulate, and he's giving this money to probably the people at the moment who need it the most.
He said afterwards on Twitter or something, he said, "I felt so proud to exist as a human being," after he did that, because what, you know, and there's a meme up there where he's putting the egg on. He says, your brain needs protein, you racist.
It's quite something.
I posted this on Facebook and I said, look, I am committed to nonviolence. I think this is not, some people said this is violence, you shouldn't do it. I said it's more in the way of humiliation,
right,
of one of the worst people in the world. I mean, look, hitting. I mean, people have been hit with pies. Anita Bryant was hit with a pie when she campaigned against gay rights.
There are glitter bombs out there. People are using glitter bombs. We should put out too, 1 million people have signed a petition asking for this, demanding for this politician to resign. He's yet to do so or say anything. I think he's planning legal action against this young kid who was arrested.
Well, you got to prove harm. I mean, you know, I was slapped by Morton Downey Jr. back in the 80s. Now, wait a minute. Everybody says, how could you be so stupid to go on that show? But it was the first week of the show, and I should have known better. And they had serious people as other panelists, and I wanted a chance to argue with the chief theologian of the Archdiocese of New York, who was there. I'd never had a chance to do that. But Morton Downey got in my face, and you know, I said, "Hey, what kind of Catholic are you? You've been divorced 3 times," and he whacked me.
That video we have to dig up. That's what we want to see.
Oh, no, actually, here, I'm sorry. I might as well tell the story. The sequence was, I'm yelling at him about his divorce, and he says, 1987, I think, he says, "You keep your body fluids to yourself, Buster." I guess some spittle had come out of my mouth. And, of course, this is in the worst days of the AIDS crisis. So I just said, F you. I said it out loud, and then he hit me. And there was a criminal case against him where the judge says he didn't hit you hard enough. Oh, thanks a lot, Judge. I did get $4,000 out of it in the civil suit, but you know, they do look at harm. So what was the harm to this guy other than humiliation? This senator,
which I think probably hurt him more than anything else. This guy is very thin-skinned, I said. Once again, he said horrific things shortly after this awful, awful terrorist attack. And this young kid, by himself, decided he was going to throw an egg at him.
And how did we mark all this in America? With the welcoming the fascist leader of Brazil, this far-right, anti-gay, anti-woman, anti-everything, Bolsonaro, to the White House. These guys are 2 peas in a pod. And at the press conference there, Bolsonaro said, I'm going to have to read this quote, "Our countries stand side by side in their efforts to ensure liberties in respect to traditional family lifestyles, respect to God, our Creator, against the gender ideology or politically correct attitudes, and against fake news." Now, the only thing Trump understood about that was fake news. He doesn't know what gender ideology is, which is against transgender, it's against gay, it's against women in the workplace, basically. It's all those things.
And didn't respond. The president stood there and listened and nodded and did not respond.
And horrendous. I mean, right there at the White House. And then a picture had emerged earlier in the week of Bolsonaro. We have it. And that's Bolsonaro on the right. His head is cut off, but they know it's him. I guess they did dental examination. The guy on the left is one of the guys who was just arrested as one of the assassins of lesbian council member and opposition leader Marielle Franco, a beloved leader. And they have linked the assassin to the Bolsonaro militias and crime family. I mean,
invited to the White House.
Wow.
Wow, it's right. So the Irish Prime Minister and his partner were invited to meet Mr. Pence, our Vice President. There they are.
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day at the Naval Observatory where he lives. So the Irish Prime Minister, who is gay, he brought his partner to a meeting on Thursday with our Vice President, who has been dubbed the face of anti-LGBTQ hate in America. They were here to celebrate what our 2 countries have in common, to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. His partner, Matt Barrett, I think his name is Barrett.
Mike Barrett.
Mike Barrett were both invited over to the Vice President's house. The Prime Minister then did tweet that it was a warm reception at Pence's home. He also points out that to the media and to Pence, that various forms of discrimination are unacceptable. He said the following: I live in a country where if I'd been myself at the time, I would have ended up breaking the law. Now that all has changed. I stand here, leader of my country, flawed and human, but judging me by my political actions and not my sexual orientation. He said this in front of Pence. He also added, we're all God's children.
Right, right. I'm sure that Pence loved that, but he didn't bring mommy with him. He didn't bring the wife, Karen, who works at an anti-LGBT school.
That is right.
Where you're not allowed to work there or go there if you're LGBT.
That is right. There's very little I like about Donald Trump, but him rubbing it into Mike's face is something that we might be able to smile at. He also, Donald Trump went on to say, him and the Prime Minister have become, quote, good friends.
Well, Leo Varadkar, the Prime Minister, the Taoiseach, as they say in Ireland, the Taoiseach, right? Pence said he was inspired by his words. Now, you know, every time I post something about Pence, some of you out there say he's a big closet case. I don't have any particular evidence. A lot of people have suspicions, but some people say he wanted to be alone with the boys. Who knows?
There's no evidence of that. Although we should point out.
Well, I won't say there's no evidence. I mean, but
we haven't seen any. We should point out though, over the weekend, a repeat of Saturday Night Live aired. We've upset the president terribly. Mike Pence is
the Christmas show.
Mike Pence is portrayed as, I would say, a DJ in a tight T-shirt playing disco songs.
And this upset the president very much, and he would like the Federal Communications Commission to crack down on NBC for showing that repeat, which the sequence, of course, with Alec Baldwin as Trump was about it's a wonderful life. You never were president, and everybody was having a great time and enjoying the holidays.
A wonderful life. What else we have?
Now we did mark again St. Patrick's Day in New York. Now, of course, this will disappear as a story in future years, but it took 25 years to get an Irish LGBT contingent in the parade. We had to protest every year. So now the Lavender and Green Alliance was allowed to march. We had about 50 of us.
Fantastic.
I participated, led by Brendan Fay and Danny Drum, the city council member, and Tom Dwayne, the former state senator, all the Irish. There's Randy Wicker. Randy Wicker's 81 years old.
God bless him.
He did the first public protest in the United States on gay issues in 1964 against and then there's the Grand Marshal, Brian O'Dwyer, there on the left.
Yes.
He's a big immigrant rights lawyer and good friend of the community. And of course, a bigger friend of the community is Malachi McCourt of the McCourt brothers. He is 87 years old, showed up in his wheelchair, and went the whole way.
Can I ask you, how was the crowd? How was the response
Well,
from the
by the
crowd?
time we get there, there's no one there on the sidelines. But no, I shouldn't say that, because there are a few people on the sidelines, and they're all cheering us.
Great.
You know, they're saying it's wonderful. Oh, thumbs up. Oh, gay. You know, great. After all, what was all the fuss about? Why did you keep us out? Even it wasn't the cardinal himself, but some bishop or something in the front of St. Patrick's welcoming the contingent. I mean, come on.
I had drinks one night at Cardinal Dolan's house.
No.
I did. So I was out.
What the hell?
I know.
Come on, you got what?
So
the hell
I was out for drinks with Greg Kelly, who's the chief. The police commissioner's son.
Yes.
He used to be the host of Good Day New York, which I go on a lot to do the gossip. So I was out for drinks with Greg, and he said his father was having some sort of reception at Cardinal Dolan's house.
God.
And would I like to go?
No, Madison
Avenue on the back end of the cathedral. And I was like, boy, would I like to go. So he turned up at Cardinal Dolan's house, where there was a fully stocked bar.
It's the rectory.
The rectory.
Or maybe, I don't know what they call it, Bishop's Manse.
It was a great night. It was a great night.
What did you talk about with the bishop?
I pointed out that they had a new...
You talked to him?
I did speak to him. And he pointed out... First of all, I asked him if he voted on the Pope. And he said, yes, I do. And we talked about that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm wanting you to get to the gay stuff.
And then there was no gay stuff.
Come
but I did point out they had the wrong picture of the Pope up. They'd just had a newly elected Pope. And I was like, you've got the wrong picture. And he was like, it's a painting. It takes a while. So it wasn't like they could just replace it with a photograph. It was a great evening.
I once bumped bellies with him in the Columbus Day parade because I was covering some anti-gay Republican who was running against Cuomo in those days. And so I we all went in. I said, "What do you think about this anti-gay guy, this Carl Palladino, marching in this parade?" Oh, he just tries to smooth everything over. Now he is, of course, the bishop. He remains anti-gay, but I mean, he is the bishop who finally said, "Let the gays in. It's too much trouble.
Let them in.
Let them in."
Let them in.
Right. But you haven't reformed, and we're going to say more about your church later. At the Pentagon, they're still trying to say that this troop trans ban, right?
Yeah, this is a really quite confusing one. So we'll go through it slowly.
Maybe you can help
so
me.
The Pentagon is defending its policy, saying it's aimed at the diagnosis of gender dysphoria, slowly, and not transgender personnel. So they're basically trying to say it's much like any other military screening that finds out medical conditions that impact people's readiness. So the only difference they are arguing between 2016 and 2018 policies is the new policy ends the practice, they say, quote, practice of providing special accommodations for individuals with a history or diagnosis of gender dysphoria.
Well, that's a lot of fancy talk for bigotry as far as I'm concerned. And the Supreme Court has allowed this to go into effect, although there's one judge, Colleen Kolar-Kotelly, who says her injunction against this thing remains in place. And that's being disputed by the Justice Department. But the bottom line is, they say they're going to let the 10% of transgender soldiers who have come out to stay out.
Right.
They say.
Yeah, they say they're going to grandfather them in.
But everybody else has got to go back in the closet and don't ask, don't tell.
Right, and it's a massive number. It looks like it's going to be about 14,000.
It's outrageous.
14,000
the
people.
Congress should do something about it. Although under this Senate, I doubt that they will. Let's talk about the presidential race. The Democratic presidential race. Our gay candidate, it's not my candidate, I don't have a candidate, Pete Buttigieg, the mayor Pete Buttigieg of mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He has 37 years old. He has raised enough money from different donors to qualify for the first tier of candidates who get into the debates.
That's right. This morning he was on Morning Joe on MSNBC, and Mika Brzezinski asked him basically, in 30 seconds, introduce yourself and what message you have for your campaign. He said, quote, the reality is, just take a look at my face. He's talking about he's talking about a generational change here. He's basically saying that the decisions that are made now are going to affect the world for 20, 30, 40 years. And he also had a little dig at Trump's
And he's sort of saying we should make these decisions because we're the ones who are going to be affected by it.
Exactly. So climate change, many other factors are really going to affect people that are now in their 30s, 40s, 50s. So he's arguing that his face and his generation, his age is actually a benefit. And I think he might be onto something. Mika also said at the end of the show, she had more texts, emails responding to Mayor Pete than any other candidate.
He's very appealing and thoughtful.
He's thoughtful.
On the other hand, the two old guys, and they're in their late 70s. I'm in my mid-60s, and I'm slowing down.
You look marvelous, Andy.
Late 70s are Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders. They're the top candidates. Kamala Harris has come up a bit in the polls, and this is the CNN poll, to 12%, but they're at 28 and 20%. But again, these are early polls. They don't mean anything. I mean, I keep saying, let's not obsess too much about this because we don't have so much control over it. Let's watch other things. Let's read some books. Let's go to the movies. I mean, just don't watch this. Is this going to be the show? The only thing we're going to talk about for the next 2 years?
Let me ask you, what did you think of Beto's rollout on the cover of Vanity Fair? You've worked on a lot of campaigns.
I didn't read the story. I mean, he's look. He set the fundraising record the day that he announced at 6.1 million. Again, I just keep saying, folks, slow down, let it play out. Everybody wants to take sides. Take it easy. You may have to vote for them in the end, right? So against Trump. So, but of course we're nonpartisan. But Trump is a monster. So the Equality Act, our federal LGBT rights bill, right?
Right.
So we told you that it was introduced. It's definitely going to pass the House.
Yes.
But there are just 2 members of Congress, one in the House, one in the Senate. We'll show them. It's not us. It's these 2 guys. Dan Lipinski from Illinois is a congressman, right wing, and Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Now, West Virginia is the state that gave Trump his highest percentage of votes in the country. That's got Joe Manchin on the right there.
Right.
68.5% was the highest percentage that Trump got anywhere.
The bill was going to modify civil rights legislations to ban discriminations for LGBTQ people in employment, housing, public accommodations, jury service, education, federal programs, and also credit. Senator Joe said, I'm not convinced that the Equality Act is written... Equality Act, is written that provides sufficient guidance to the local authorities who'll be responsible for implementing it. So blaming here wording and local
I've been listening to
officials.
those excuses forever. Forever. And then the former president of the log cabin Republicans, Greg Angelo, came out against the bill because it doesn't protect religion enough as far as he's concerned. He wants religious people to have the right to discriminate against us. And you got to educate people that this is about civil law, civil accommodations, public accommodations. Catholic priest isn't going to have to ordain gay men if they don't want to, even though 80% of the curia in the Vatican is gay, half the priesthood is gay, but they won't have to do it under the law.
About equality. That's what this one's about.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg turned 86 this week.
Happy birthday, Ruth.
But she hadn't been well, right?
Right.
And there is now a right-wing rumor rife on the internet that that's not her sitting there on the court. That's a double, and she's dead.
And I'm Anne. Yes, no, I'm not. It is amazing, and unfortunately, as silly as this is, and we can enjoy a laugh about it, some people actually believe this, and if you look on some of the darker aspects of the internet, don't look, they actually believe that is not Ruth, this is a conspiracy theory, and that is somebody else pretending to be Ruth.
Well, we spread the rumors about Melania having a double, right? Don't we?
Melania Trump.
I don't.
I don't either.
It's too trivial.
It's too trivial.
But what did the Supreme Court do this week?
Tell us. Oh, the Supreme Court this week rejected a Hawaii B&B that refused to serve a lesbian couple. So the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday declined to hear a challenge from the lower court that found that the owner of a Hawaii B&B violated a state anti-discrimination law by turning away a lesbian couple. They don't want to hear it, which was somewhat of a surprise because
I think
the cake...
Yeah, the cake cases may come back, but they don't seem to want to hear this rather, cut and dry.
Right.
You're running a place, a public accommodation, and you wouldn't let people stay there because of their status.
Right.
You don't know what's going on behind closed doors. Do you interview all the straight people and say, are you going to engage in, non-standard intercourse, and is it going to be open to procreation? Or you're not going to masturbate tonight, are you? I mean, whatever. It's just silly.
When they don't hear a case, Andy,
It stands.
So it stands
At the lower court.
But is that the same power as hearing it and rejecting it?
Well, no, because when they hear it and reject it, then you've set a national precedent.
I see.
You see. This just applies to this case in this state, and so that's how it works.
And is that the reason they declined to hear it?
Well, they may want to fiddle with how the law is applied, but they chose this isn't the case to do it. P.S., all these cases that we keep telling you about under Title IX and Title VII, which protect us, gay people and transgender people, under sex discrimination, right? These cases are sitting there on their discussion calendar, and they keep not deciding whether to take them. And you may hear on Monday whether they've decided to do this. I'm a little worried about that because we've been winning these cases, most of them, not all of them, over the last 18 years. And they could shut the door on that and say, no, that's not what the Congress meant, blah. And then you would need the Equality Act in order to be protected.
Sitting on their discussion calendar. Is this like a Brett Kavanaugh calendar?
They meet and they decide whether they're going to decide cases. If they do on Friday, they're going to decide on Friday, you'll hear about it on Monday. If they do, it wouldn't be heard until the next term, which starts on the first Monday of October. We have a little tradition about this. First Monday in October is the next term. All the big decisions for this term will come out by the end of June.
Look what you learn watching this show.
Watching the show. I mean, you think I want to know all this stuff? I mean, I can remember when we were talking about all the different federal circuits. The Ninth Circuit, the Fourth Circuit, people wrote in and said, would you stop with the circuits? I don't know what you're talking about.
What else do we have?
But I think you can understand that there are elections coming up in Chicago on April 2nd. All right, that's the mayoral runoff. And this is between a lesbian named Lori Lightfoot, who's the favorite, and Toni Preckwinkle. They're both African-American women, but it seems like the people supporting Preckwinkle really want to remind you that Lori Lightfoot is a lesbian and you're going to get the Equality Act. So they're just finding ways to put this out there.
So these are flyers that we're showing that have been scattered around the neighborhood, reminding you.
Contracts will have to be applied to gay people.
Reminding you that she is a lesbian. That seems how they are fighting back.
I don't think it's going to work in Chicago. On the other, and then there's the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. They elect Supreme Court justices there. And
sounds nice.
There's a conservative majority now. We're trying to move towards a progressive majority. So the race is between a right-winger named Judge Brian Hagedorn on the left and progressive Judge Lisa Niebauer. Hagedorn declined as Governor Scott Walker's top lawyer to defend the state law, giving gay couples just some of the rights as married couples more than a decade ago. Horrible. So you have a chance there, Wisconsin.
Get out and vote.
Take it. April 2nd for both elections, Chicago, Wisconsin. You got it?
Big day.
Okay. All right, some state issues?
Yes, jump ahead.
Well, all right, Arizona. They have a state law that prohibits public schools from portraying homosexuality as a positive alternative lifestyle. Horrible law. This is from the state that just elected the out bisexual Kristen Sinema as the U.S. Senator. So the National Center for Lesbian Rights is looking for you, if you're an LGBTQ public school student willing to challenge that law. Write to them at Arizona Schools, AZschools at nclrights.org.
There it is on the bottom of the
screen. I'll put it in the email.
So they're looking for gay, lesbian students to write to them and
if you're willing to step out and challenge the law. Then in New York State, the comptroller of the state audited the schools and their compliance with the anti-bullying laws. Guess what?
How did they do?
Oh, isn't it nice? Almost half the schools don't have any incidents of bullying. As Ann always says, there's one incident a minute in most schools of bullying. So it's a big problem. Schools don't want to report that things are not going well.
Right.
So they suppress these things.
Do you think the kids report it and the schools do not, or do you think the kids do not report them?
We're gonna find out. They do survey the kids anonymously, and 18% of the kids in one of the schools that had no incidents, no reported incidents, said that it goes on constantly. So they've got to find a better way to assess this and a better way to stop bullying in the schools, other than just relying on these reports.
Were you bullied in school?
Some. I was sort of nerdy, and I was bullied for that, and I didn't go to the dances or whatever, a bit. How about you?
I surprisingly wasn't. I had a sister that was a year older who was a tough cookie and ran the school, and I got away with murder because of my sister Christine. Hello, Christine. Thank you.
The jocks used to go after me, because I wasn't a jock, and I played golf. I was a champion bowler, but that's not jockey enough. You don't wear a jock for those things. But I didn't suffer the way some of these kids suffered, to the point that they want to commit suicide. I certainly thought of ending it all because I was figuring out that I was gay, and I didn't think that was going to go so well, but I didn't, and here I am.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. In Glen Burnie, Maryland, at the library. You have this?
I do not. This one's yours.
Okay. So they had drag queen story time, which is a big popular thing in libraries now. Drag queens come in and read stories to kids. 100 parents and kids came to the thing. So then they got nervous about it. Now they're shutting it down and saying, we want to make all the decisions about this LGBT stuff. And there's a big fight between the executive director of the library.
I went to a drag queen library reading in Hoboken, and it was fantastic. And the kids loved it.
Well, I mean,
They loved it. It was so theatrical and over the top and exciting that the children sat there mesmerized. It was a great.
maybe
great
all teachers should get up and drag, and they would entertain the
we would
kids
get
more.
better grades. Me and you would
Maybe.
would get better grades.
Yes. All right. Now, what about San Francisco?
We have here in San Francisco, so Mayor London Breed has announced.
London Breed is the
has
mayor.
Announced, that's the mayor, has announced the first new fire chief, and it's a historic first. There she is, Jeannine Nicholson, the Deputy Chief of Administration, a 25-year veteran of San Francisco's fire department, is now the city's first openly gay fire chief. She said she's humbled. The mayor said she's a tough lady, she's resilient, and she's a great leader. Her priority is going to be addressing to the homeless situation that is plaguing San Francisco.
Well, I mean, I tell you, just being a woman in the fire department, and I believe the previous chief was a woman as well.
That's right.
But 25 or more years ago, I know the women who were on the first wave. One of them was raped. I mean, they were all harassed horribly by the New York City fire department. It was they had to have a lot of endurance so that we could all be free. All right. How about what's going on in New York City at the LGBT Center with Sarah Ramirez, the actress,
That's
the
right.
one she's from Grey's
Grey's
Anatomy.
Anatomy. I
What
think
happened?
she was also on Broadway too. So she gave a donation to the center. She's a bisexual actress, but she said that with her donation, she wanted the money to go to training the staff on bisexual-based training. This never happened, so she announced that she got a full refund from the center after a year and a half of promising that. They finally gave it, and they did not retrain the staff. The center put out a statement acknowledging that they returned the money and they did not incorporate the training that she asked for her donation.
Come on. We welcome bisexual co-hosts here and transgender co-hosts, etc. All right. Okay. Illinois, the House there voted to require an LGBT history curriculum be taught in the schools on the roles and contributions of LGBT people in the history of the country and the state. In official textbooks. It's an effort to reduce bullying. The Senate passed it last May, so it goes to Governor Pritzker, who's a Democrat. He ought to sign it. But the Illinois Family Institute said they're trying to normalize homosexuality. You think?
That's the whole point. The whole point. I think this one's going to pass.
Yes, or be signed. In Vermont, they become the 10th state to provide non-binary options on your personal IDs, like driver's licenses and things. Oregon, the state house passed the bill, removing anti-gay language from the state laws. Everybody, you need to clean up your code. In Colorado, the bill against conversion therapy passed a Senate committee. That's making progress. At Azusa Pacific University in California, they banned same-sex, it's a religious affiliated school. They banned same-sex relationships on campus. They struck down the rule. They put it back. They removed it again, and now the ban is gone for the moment. So don't get too comfortable in your same-sex relationship. All right.
Get too comfortable.
This is not a gay thing, but I was happy to see that the Manhattan District Attorney is bringing state charges against Paul Manafort that can't be pardoned by the president because he can only pardon federal crimes. And I'm sure he's on your tail as well, Mr. President, and your crime family. Okay. This is an interesting story. We have a videotape of this, and we're going to run it in a second. But did you ever notice how much when you listen to artificial intelligence voices, they're almost always female, right?
That's
Siri.
right.
Cortana, is that how you say it?
I think it is.
Alexa, the Google Maps.
In your
you're
car.
getting the directions. So now there's Q, which is billed as the first genderless voice, an effort to eradicate gender bias in technology. It was created by linguists, technologists, and sound designers. And now they want to work on making technology less sexist because it's almost always created by men. And they're going to make, so anyway, we want you to listen,
let's listen
to Q.
Hi, I'm Q, the world's first genderless voice assistant. Think of me like Siri or Alexa, but neither male nor female. I'm created for a future where we are no longer defined by gender, but rather how we define ourselves. My voice was recorded by people who neither identify as male nor female, and then altered to sound gender neutral, putting my voice between 145 and 175 hertz, a range defined by audio researchers. But for me to become a third option for voice assistants, I need your help. Share my voice with Apple, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. And together we can ensure that technology recognizes us all. Thanks for listening, Q.
Wow.
Thank you, Q. I'll support you, Q.
By the way, I watched the documentary on HBO about Elizabeth Holmes Theranos. Did you see it?
Yes, I did see this. The Inventor. It's a shocking, shocking documentary. It's playing on repeat, so you can catch it.
Fraud.
This was a lady who...
She said you could take a drop of blood and do all the blood tests, and it was always just a dream. It was never, and she was totally, and she raised billions for this, but it made me think of it because of her voice. Because everybody who knew her when she was younger said she talked like this, and then she started to talk like this when she played this role.
Do you know Margaret Thatcher had vocal coaches to lower her voice?
Yes.
It's wild, isn't it?
Yes. Look, people have to be able to hear you. And it was felt that it was necessary.
Oh, I'm totally convinced if I didn't have this silly accent, I would never be on TV here.
You think it's a silly accent? You know, Lenny Bruce used to have a routine. I better not go into this.
You'll get into trouble. You'll get into trouble.
No, I will, so I'm editing myself before I do.
Be careful, Andy, be careful.
All right, so you're coming to New York for the World Pride Stonewall 50, June 30th, end of June. They have now announced their route. We'll put this up on the screen.
It's a very unusual
Last
route.
year it goes, from the east side to the west. It used to go from the west side to the east side and down through the Stonewall. Now it's going to start up at 26th Street and 5th Avenue.
And 5th, and they plan to go down 5th Avenue, turning west on 8th Street, across 6th Avenue, down Christopher Street, and then it looks like it shoots
up 7th.
Uptown too. They're expecting millions of people. This is the
About
first.
25th Street. They're going right to my doorstep there. You come by and see us.
Have a cup of tea.
So, all right, keep that map up there, because what we're trying to do in Reclaim Pride is start right in the middle there, earlier in the morning.
Yes.
In the village, and go up 6th Avenue, the route people took in 1970 for the first Christopher Street Liberation Day March, and go straight up to the park and have a rally and a gay in
and a picnic
it'll be
in
all
the
over.
park.
If you still want to come down to this sclerotic corporate parade, and I am very critical of it because it's too corporate dominated and it's very hard to get into if you're on the sidelines. Ours should be easy to get into, but if you do decide to go to that, you can go downtown and they'll still be waiting on side streets to get out, because it took 9 hours last year. With Stonewall 50, it could take 18 hours.
It could take a while.
They're supposed to have a rally later on in Times Square,
which I think Melissa Etheridge is going to be performing. Yeah. There's a little bit of a rumor too that maybe Madonna
so you
might
can
turn
still
up there,
go
so
to,
you still have time. I'm coming to yours, Andy. I shall be there marching up 6th Avenue with you, with my
We
picnic
need you to
basket.
help organize, folks. We are having a community-wide organizing meeting on Wednesday, March 27th at 6:30 p.m. And for this meeting, we're going to the LGBT Community Center. Even though they don't have bisexual training, we'll give them an education. Okay?
We'll give them an education.
We got a couple of obituaries to talk about. Now, the first one I'll do is Senator Birch Bayh. He was 91 years old. There he is. He's the second from the right there. And he's running with women because he is the guy in 1972 who authored Title IX, which was this radical thing that said, if you're an educational institution, college, even a high school, you get federal money, you can't discriminate on the basis of sex. Radical idea. Totally transformed athletics and many other things. Right. What a gift that was. He had pushed for the ERA, which didn't pass. We don't have an equal rights amendment in our Constitution.
It's wild. I think it's easy to forget what a ground landmark piece of legislation that really was. Yes. It changed everything.
And you know how everybody's now talking about, we got to get rid of the Electoral College, and all the commentators on TV says, that's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. Nobody will ever pass that. He pushed that in the 60s.
And they said it too. They said to him, it will never,
in 1969, happen. It passed the House overwhelmingly, and it was blocked by the segregationist Southern senators in the Senate. So, and he also supported abortion rights and gay rights and worked against the war. He pushed the 26th Amendment that gave 18-year-olds the right to vote, and the 25th, which could be used to remove Trump because it says if he goes, and this is what's being pushed these days, he's out of his mind, let's use the 25th Amendment and get him out of there.
Rest in peace, a legend.
Birch Bayh. And then Barbara Hammer.
Tell me about Barbara.
Oh,
yes.
okay. Barbara Hammer, we told
We
told you about her a couple of weeks ago because she was begging for the right to die.
Yes.
She was very involved in the Right to Die movement. She was 79 when she finally died of ovarian cancer, which she was diagnosed with in 2006. She did the breakthrough work in 1974, Didactics, an experimental film considered revolutionary. She never separated her sexuality from her art, 40-year career, self-identified badass. I can say that on this show. She was an AIDS activist, survived by her spouse of 31 years, Florrie Burke, a human rights activist. Barbara Hammer, rest in peace. Rest in power, as we say. Okay, international news.
Yes.
We have a bunch of items from your
We do.
country.
So the UK government has appointed its first national advisor for LGBT health. So the Minister of Women's and Equalities, she has announced that she's appointed the first ever LGBT health advisor for the NHS.
That's the National Health Service. He's Dr. Michael Brady there, holding a sign that says, people on effective HIV treatment can't pass it on.
Wow.
Which is a very important message.
This is landmark action, so an expert panel appointed him, and it's going to focus too on big issues in the UK at the moment affecting LGBT people, including conversion therapy and access to healthcare. A recent study claimed that 16% of LGBT people experience some negative aspect when going to the NHS because of their sexual orientation.
Really?
So 16%. This is going to hopefully change that.
Right, and he wants PrEP to be much more widely available. He works for the Terrence Higgins Trust,
yes,
which you know is the big AIDS charity there. Actually, not just charity, but you know, it's sort of like the GMHC of
Great Britain. Yes.
All right, and that's, by the way, folks, from the conservative government of Theresa May. You know, that's what a conservative is over there. I mean, I don't particularly like her, and she's screwing up with Brexit, but oh God, what's going to happen there?
I don't know. It's such a dilemma. And there seems to be no obvious solution, which is when you need real leaders, and the country's split 50-50. It's really quite dramatic. When I speak to people back home, the feeling is, and maybe the mistake was, they did have a referendum, they did make a vote.
Oh, it was a mistake.
And they decided to leave.
Well, you know, when you joined the European Union, you had to have like a 60 or 70% vote to get in.
Yes.
And in your country.
Of which Margaret Thatcher joined.
But this should have been, that was in like the 60s or 70s, but I mean, this should have been a 60% threshold.
It was very, very tight, and people now are terrified. There's certain supermarkets now that are out of food because people are frightened, that people are storing fuel. It's really ugly, and there's nobody yet who's stepped forward to seem to have a solution for this.
Well, we were talking before the show. I proposed the Irish solution, which is you get a very large focus group in a room of real cross-section of people, and you get them to agree on some consensus solution to this, and then Parliament adopts it. That's how they settled abortion in Ireland. And,
two subjects, too, that nobody thought they would be able to have a consensus on, so maybe that's the way to go. Nobody suggested that yet. At the moment, everybody's still shouting at one another, which is getting them nowhere.
Oh, well. And horrible news out of Athens.
This is a really awful story. So a homophobic attack happened here. They torched down a HIV testing center in Athens. The Greek government are very angry about this. They have not yet found who did it. So the Athens headquarters of Checkpoint is their name, was burnt to the ground on the early hours of Monday morning.
This is where 30% of HIV testing is done in the country.
30%. We should really emphasize that. So the arsonists, they scaled up the first floor balcony, they ripped down the pride flag, and then they threw gasoline through the windows and set the place on fire.
What is eating them? It's getting very ugly out there. But a little better news in Germany. They've expanded reparations for gay men and bisexual men who were persecuted under paragraph 175, which banned gay sex back in 1871, and which was intensified in the Nazi era.
But continued after the Nazis, too. I was surprised this existed till 1969.
They didn't get rid of it until 69, and there were 50,000 people convicted under it and 100,000 investigated for it. So they had given reparations to the people convicted. You got $3,400 per conviction and $1,700 for each year in prison. But this only cost them under $500,000.
Right.
So you might as well do it. When are we going to get our reparations here in the United States? Now, but this new development is that if you were investigated for it, you get $567 and $1,700 for each year of pre-trial custody and another $1,700 for other disadvantages. And the Justice Minister said, you know, this paragraph 175 destroyed lives. It led to sham marriages, harassment, blackmail, and suicide. So only 133 people have applied since 2017, but we need to do this here.
It's bigger than the amount of people that applied. This sends a very clear message, and about time too.
Not much to report in Taiwan. They're still futzing around with the marriage thing. The right wing doesn't want to call it marriage. We want to call it marriage. We want the same thing, and we'll see how they work on that. What happened back in your hometown?
I'm from Birmingham, England, a little industrial town in the middle.
Industrial town.
It's the second biggest. So London and Birmingham. My mum says it's like Pittsburgh. It's an industrial town, a little down on its luck. Birmingham, England. So a primary school there has suspended its LGBT lessons because parents are very angry about this. So
they were picketing.
They were picketing. Parkfield School in Saltley, just outside Birmingham, is the scene of weekly protests about this. So there was a group called No Outsiders teaching lessons, tolerance, not just for gay people, but for sexual orientation, race, gender. These lessons have been put on hold until a solution can be reached.
So what are you teaching the kids? You're giving in to the bigots who protest outside? Now, I realize I've worked in school issues for 40 years, and it does unhinge people when you talk about schools. When we were trying to pass the gay rights bill in New York years ago, right? They offered us a chance to pass it. Just exclude teachers from the bill. We said, are you kidding? We're not excluding anybody. We're not making any compromises. Get over it. So we had to wait 15 years in New York to have a basic gay rights law.
But it finally passed.
15 years. It's embarrassing. It was originated in New York. New York was the first city to come up with the term sexual orientation. The Gay Activist Alliance wrote it in 1971. And then Minnesota passes it, and Washington, and San Francisco, all these other places. But we didn't have it.
Shameful.
Because New York is actually, I don't know if you know, a very conservative town.
I do
in many ways.
I do know.
It's changing.
It is changing. It is changing.
So how about Prince Charles this week, right? He has a trust, and they present these educational awards, and one of them was presented to a transgender nursing student, 21-year-old Jay Kelly. He was recognized as Educational Achiever of the Year for opening up about how he struggled with mental health after transitioning. And we have a little video of Jay. It's quite touching. Stick with it.
Throughout my life, I have suffered with psychotic depression, anxiety, and borderline personality disorder. I started self-harming at 12. I didn't really know what the hell was going on. I came out as transgender at 15. It was terrifying. In school, I was predicted A's and A stars, but my grades tapered out. My mental health was so bad that I just didn't go to school. I hated getting on public transport. It caused so much anxiety every single time. Constantly trying to harm myself, that's all I could really focus on at that time. It was just long and dark. I heard about the Prince's Trust through my care coordinator. She referred me to the Fairbridge Program. The Fairbridge Program starts with a week-long access course where you meet a bunch of new people, build your confidence doing lots of different activities. When we went to Fort Pembroke with the indoor bouldering, that's where I realised I love this. This is so much fun. My little brother James is the light of my life. He is so supportive of everything I do.
My brother means everything to me. He's the one that I can talk to about anything. we're there for each other all the time. I'm proud that he's able to overcome what's happened.
The Fairbridge Program changed my life. It gave me the confidence to leave my house. It gave me friends. It enabled me to get back into college. And I recently got accepted to University of West London for mental health nursing. I'm happy and I'm surrounded by people that love and care for me, and I love and care for them.
And this was his award. He may never be king, but he's doing some good there, for
love
sure.
Is love is love. And the power still of the royals in Britain cannot be underestimated.
Right.
This was lovely.
All right. A couple of quick notes, because Rob has a lot of great entertainment news. So in Germany, a lot of the parties are calling for the removal of the gay ambassador from the United States, who's the ambassador there because he's basically a fascist. And in Botswana, the High Court has heard the case about decriminalizing homosexuality. By the way, they protect gay rights there in employment. It's unbelievable. In Turkey, a 10-year veteran of the police department was fired for being gay. In Kyrgyzstan, they had the first ever Pride March in Central Asia.
Wow.
And it was quite controversial. The Pope will not accept the resignation of the French cardinal who covered up abuse, even though he was convicted. Oh, give him a chance. He's got an appeal going. They don't give us much of a chance. Poland, the priest abuse was reported, 625 victims since 1990. This is a country with 87% people in the Catholic Church, but they did tear down a statue of one of the abusers. And, all right. And then AIDS news. Project Inform, based in San Francisco, one of the nation's longest HIV education advocacy groups, is likely to terminate. They've fired everybody. They seem to be. This is Martin Delaney. They did tremendous work over the years.
Is this because of money?
Yeah, well, who knows? The mismanagement. I don't have the whole story, but you know, it's a shame that it's leaving because we still don't have a cure, and they're working on HIV and hepatitis C, but others are going to have to pick up the slack. Trump is trying to make a change to Medicare Part D, projected to let insurance companies deny some HIV care. You're a horror show. And Larry Kramer wrote an angry open letter to Tony Fauci at the NIH demanding that he use his powers to approve cheap HIV drugs, generic HIV drugs. And he says, Tony, are you going to be a hero or a heavy?
Good for you.
All right.
You're so good at this, Andy. I get all my news from you each week.
I'm
in this
glad I watch
role.
the show. Anne always tells me things I don't know.
It's a great show. Thank you for having me again. So we have a
Please.
little bit of entertainment stories for you. Armie Hammer, handsome gentleman from Call Me By Your Name, seems to have changed his mind about a sequel. They were talking about doing a part 2 of this. It was very, very popular. He said now that they think it might not be the best idea. They do not want to disappoint people. The first one he thinks was so great that maybe they won't actually reach a part 2. He did say too, whenever he's in public, people give him peaches. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about.
It's a family show. We can't talk about that.
Also too,
but did you think he was properly cast? I mean, I think he's a star who attracted people to the movie,
that's
which is
what
good.
I think. And I think that's part of the reason. Although I think he did a very good job in it too.
Okay.
But he definitely is a star.
Timothy Chalamet got all the awards and nominations.
Rightfully so. He was extraordinary. I didn't know who he was until that movie, and now I'm a total fan. Also too, Aladdin on Broadway turns 5 years old. There's a new guy in town called Ainsley Melham. He's an Australian guy. Here he is. Look at him. He's joined the show. People are saying he's the best Aladdin that's ever been in the show. I was lucky enough to go back and see him. I met him afterwards. He's charming. Interestingly, he's out, and his boyfriend at the moment is Lola in Kinky Boots, who's from London. After the show too,
the last Aladdin was out.
Yes, that's right.
Asian actor.
He wouldn't tell me how they do that flying carpet. I begged and begged and begged.
Oh, it is amazing.
They would not tell me. He said it was not on strings, but if you haven't seen Aladdin, or if you have, maybe it's time to revisit it.
If you get our emails, I keep a running list of shows that I can recommend that people go to see on Broadway, and that's one of the shows.
He's terrific. He was spotted recently with his boyfriend at Maria's Crisis down in the village singing show tunes.
Telly Leung. right?
Yes.
Was the last one.
Yes.
Also out
I
gay.
did not know that. So
Also
Aladdin on
out gay.
Broadway. Ainsley, fantastic. Liza Minnelli, there's an interview with Billy Stritch, who played the piano for Liza.
He was her
for a long
accompanist
time,
forever.
musical,
Billy Stritch.
Billy Stritch, a great musician, a star in his own right. He did Judy Gold's podcast where he talked about having a sexual relationship with Liza
Really?
Minnelli. He dated her for a year. When he first met her, she was at Radio City.
Is he straight bisexual?
Openly gay.
Well,
and told,
bisexual, I guess.
Right, but told Liza when they first hooked up that he had been with many more men than females. She didn't seem to mind.
Well, she married a lot of gay men, didn't she?
Peter Allen. What Billy Stritch said, the one thing she would never admit, though, is that her father was gay. So
She would
Vincent
never
Minnelli
admit that
would
Vincente Minnelli?
would not talk about Vincent Minnelli.
Really?
Go and listen to Judy Gold's podcast. It is called, it's a hoot. Let me
Judy
see.
Gold is a great comedian.
Great comedian. Kill Me Now is the name of her podcast. I didn't realise Billy Stritch and Liza were a sexual couple. She dumped him in Atlantic City, he said, and he caught the bus home while she got on the helicopter.
They still work together?
They still work together. Still work together.
Billy
Gay
Stritch.
Twitter is after J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter.
Oh,
so
no. What happened?
She has admitted, finally, in a bonus interview for Fantastic Beasts, she's admitted that Dumbledore was indeed having a sexual relationship with Grindelwald. She said she wanted to focus.
Who's Grindelwald?
Grindelwald
I'm
is
not up on it.
another wizard. People are angry with her though because this was not really shown in the movies. So now admitting it when she could have maybe shown
Well, they could move it. They could put it in the play.
Well, the play's open, so I don't know if they're going to change it.
What do you mean the play's not open?
No, it is open.
Well, you can change it.
I don't think they're changing the play.
Edward
but
Albee used to change his script.
They are together. There was a lovely scene on American Idol. A contestant called Georgie came out to Katy Perry. He thanked Katy for her song I Kissed a Girl, and he sang an original composition that thankfully was terrific. He also explained that he was not out to his father, but now he is after that. And also Paul Buttigieg, is that correct, Andy? Buttigieg.
Slowly, boot edge. So Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
That's how this is. You're talking about Pete, Mayor Pete from
Paul,
South
sorry.
Bend.
Mayor Pete
from South
Mayor
Bend.
Pete was asked about whether or not he enjoyed RuPaul's Drag Race, and unfortunately, Mayor Pete does not. However, his husband is a big fan. So RuPaul, react to that.
I have to say, obviously, Anne watches all these shows and keeps me up on popular culture because I'm useless. I did watch RuPaul's Drag Race once, and I moved on to other things. I have to keep up with the news. Can you learn? What do you learn? Do you like the show? Are you devoted to it?
To RuPaul's Drag Race? I'm not. I'm an occasional fan of it. I love it. I think it's terrific and funny and naughty. But I think it's a question that Mayor Pete probably wasn't expecting to come. It came. The Advocate asked him this, and his response, I think, was pretty great. His husband, Lesbian, not so much himself.
You can get asked a lot. What's going to happen when they ask Joe Biden? God, I saw Joe Biden in the Theranos documentary walk. Everybody walked around with Elizabeth Holmes at the lab and was taken in by her. I have a close friend who was one of her lawyers.
Really? So a packed show.
He got out.
Thank you for having me back. I love coming on the show.
Thank you for being here, Rob Shooter of NaughtyGossip.com.
Naughty.
And we have we got 30 seconds here. What else do you want to tell them about?
What else do we talk about? So the big opening on Broadway is the Temptations musical. You're going to go and see it next week.
Yes, you saw it?
Too proud. I have seen it. It's very, very good, but I can't wait to see and hear your review.
Okay, we will see that. I want to see Glenda Jackson and Lear. By the way, if you can get tickets to the Lehman trilogy, I saw that in London. It's terrific. It's playing at the Armory in New York. It's a terrific show.
Anne's going. We'll see you at the theatre.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.